primordial ancestor god, the previous leader of the divine spirits. Hanju sensed his aura on the Fusong tree. The primordial ancestor god was cursed by him and was attacked by the ultimate god of punishment. He could only die and leave a trace of life sealed in the supreme rules. Hanju guessed that he would revive but didn't expect it to be so fast. It was not a coincidence that this fellow found the Fusong tree. The Fusong tree had karma with Hanju. It was very easy to deduce. After all, the Fusong tree had always been in his Dao field. All the karma was related to him. Hanju observed the Fusong tree carefully. Voss. The primordial ancestor god was not hiding on the Fusong tree, but his aura was still there. Hanju couldn't figure out what the primordial ancestor god wanted to do and had no choice but to use the derivation function. I want to know why the primordial ancestor god helped the Fusong tree? 10 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Now, a mere 10 trillion years of lifespan was no longer in Hanju's eyes. Besides, even the 10 trillion-year-old ancient desolate divine spirit was killed by him. Hanju's consciousness evolved into an illusion. He opened his eyes and saw a pale space. Other than the Fusong tree and a figure under it, there was nothing else. There was not even land. The Fusong tree asked, "Who are you?" The primordial ancestor god did not reveal his true body. He was only a shadow that emitted light. Fusong tree was silent. You are one of the 10 great divine trees of the heavenly Tao. You have the creation of the primordial chaos and are not allowed to transform. This is because you represent the rules and can connect to the myriad worlds of the chaos. You have great creation and great karma. However, because of a certain existence, you have developed intelligence and are already bearing a huge price. You can't transcend relying solely on yourself. Furthermore, your existence has already attracted the attention of many mighty figures. You need a backing, the primordial ancestor god said casually. The Fusong tree said in a low voice, "I have a backing." The primordial ancestor god said, "I know. Speaking of which, I still have a battle with him. However, I was plotted against by a dark junior. All these years, I've been staring at the chaos and seeing through many things. I'm not his match, but your backing might not always be watching you. The fact that I can tell you my relationship with him is enough to show my sincerity. If I want to rely on you to scheme against him, I can hide it and show the benefits. It's enough to convince you. I need you, and you also need me. No one in the chaos knows better than me what you represent and how to help you grow." The Fusong tree asked, "What happens after that?" The primordial ancestor god said, "When you attain the great Tao manifestation, I will obtain my understanding of the great Tao of spacetime. After that, you and I will have nothing to do with each other. I don't need you to do anything. We are just taking what we need." The Fusong tree fell silent. After a while, the Fusong tree said firmly, "All right." The illusion shattered. Hanju opened his eyes and sighed. He didn't dislike the Fusong tree's choice. If it were him, he would also want to transform. As for the primordial ancestor god, he would wait and see. In any case, the primordial ancestor god's enemies were the ultimate god of punishment and the dark forbidden lord. From the looks of it, the primordial ancestor god was temporarily helpless. Hanju's gaze landed on the door of the great Tao next. The Fusong trees were transformed into a woman with a graceful figure, and she used her dermic powers to open the door. At this moment, several mighty figures were already waiting behind the great Tao door and discussing the Fusong tree's foundation. Han Huan was also here. Many stunning existences would appear every 100,000 years. In the eyes of all living beings, Han Huan was no longer a prodigy, but a peerless expert who suppressed an area. Of course, in the eyes of existences like Hanju, Han Huang was still a prodigy. The definition of a prodigy was never absolute. Han Huang already intended to show his charm, which made Hanju very relieved. With him around, Hanju did not plan to say anything. The Fusong tree should be able to succeed. Several hours later, the Fusong tree successfully stepped into the Great Tao realm. After its will walked into the door of the Great Tao, it saw a group of Great Tao sages. The Fusong tree was stunned when it saw Han Huang. It immediately became nervous and hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, Master." With that said, the mighty figures looked at Han Huang. A Great Tao sage teased him. "Divine General Han is really powerful. You captured another junior? She's so beautiful. You're really lucky." Han Huang didn't know the Fusong tree, but he was very smart and asked, "Are you talking about my father, Hanju?" The Great Tao sages immediately became serious and did not dare to joke anymore. When it came to the Divine Might Heavenly Sage, they knew what to say and what not to say. Even they looked at the Fusong tree with reverence. The Fusong tree had heard Hanju's words in the past, but it didn't know Hanju's status in the chaos. However, she could read their expressions and see through their thoughts. The Fusong tree sized him up and sighed. "As expected of Master's son. You're really talented. You're too similar to Master. What's your name?" "My name is Han Huang." Han Huang smiled and pondered. He had to figure out the relationship between her and his father. Tao Comprehension Sword also called his father Master, but she was actually one of his mothers. Han Huang smiled and said, "Everyone, disperse. We have to chat." The Great Tao sages did not dare to refuse and left. They felt a little regretful. Apart from suppressing the juniors, he could also rope them in here. Especially after seeing Han Huang rope and many geniuses for the Heavenly Court, they naturally had such an idea. Hanju was relieved to see the Fusong tree acknowledge Han Huang. His gaze landed on the primordial ancestor god. The primordial ancestor god did not stay with the Fusong tree. There was only a remnant aura. The Fusong tree's main body was transforming. Hanju used the ultimate origin power to isolate the domain where the Fusong tree's main body was. Other than protecting the Fusong tree, he also wanted to warn the chaotic mighty figures. This tree was protected by the Divine Might Heavenly Sage. Hanju sent a voice transmission to the ultimate god of punishment, revealing that the primordial ancestor god was about to revive. It was fine as long as the ultimate god of punishment dealt with the primordial ancestor god. There was no need for the current Hanju to personally act. The primordial ancestor god was not his match. Who was qualified to be his match in the entire chaos? Only a Tao creator outside of the chaos. Hanju was very proud. Wait. This mentality was not good. The previous primordial ancestor god and ancient desolate divine spirit also thought that they were invincible, but they were surpassed by him. I want to know if an existence will surpass me in the future. 100 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? 100 trillion years. Hanju's heart sank. So there was really an unknown mighty figure in the ancient desolate? That made sense. Hanju was already powerful enough, but he still couldn't see through some unknown areas of the chaos. If there was no mighty figure protecting him, how could he not spy? Hanju chose to continue. He could still afford 100 trillion years. Hanju entered the illusion. He opened his eyes and discovered that he had arrived in a dark space. The surroundings were filled with wisps of strange purple aura. In the distance, vaguely sinister and mighty shadows floated. Hanju discovered that 9 figures were gathered together. They were arguing. Chaos? It's just a hypothesis. How ridiculous. We can't show ourselves at all with the primordial fiend celestial suppressing us. Yes, Why scheme? His power is too strong. We're not his match at all. We can't control the primordial chaos. Opening the chaos is even more wishful thinking. Brother's plan can't be realized. So what if we create the chaos? With the primordial fiend celestial around, it's meaningless even if the chaos exists. These 9 figures spoke in a language Hanju had never heard before, but he could understand their meaning and translate it into his own language in his mind with their cultivation realms. Hanju raised his eyebrows. Could the 9 figures be the 9th chaos and the 8 primordial spirits? Previously, he had recorded the relevant information when he checked the 9th chaos information. The first 8 primordial spirits had failed to create the chaos. Only the 9th chaos had succeeded. What were they plotting? How could it threaten Hanju if it was only related to the chaos? A figure said, "We each have to try to open the chaos. We have to inherit the failed experiences of our predecessors and place our hopes on our 9th brother." The other 7 figures looked at the thinnest figure. Hanju guessed that it was the 9th chaos. The 9th chaos said anxiously, "If all my brothers die, I won't live alone. It's not my intention to open up the chaos. Actually, isn't it good for us to be like this? The primordial fiend celestial didn't bully us. It just didn't let us create more primordial spirits." His words attracted the 8 primordial spirits' anger, who were so frightened that they did not dare to speak again. A primordial spirit said, "We can leave a backup plan even if we fail. We will each leave a trace of the origin mark for our 9th brother. If we really fail, when our 9th brother revives in the future, we will place our hopes on him." Hanju was enlightened. So the 8 primordial spirits wanted to revive and had the 9th chaos backing. They could naturally rise forcefully and threaten him. Not long after, the illusion ended. The subsequent conversation was about how to open up the chaos and had nothing to do with Hanju. His consciousness returned to his body and he opened his eyes. "I want to know which primordial spirit has revived. 100 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Could it have already grown to the level of the ancient desolate divine spirit?" Hanju's heart sank. He immediately chose to continue. A tall figure appeared in his mind and lines of words appeared in front of him. Chuan, early stage zenith heaven golden immortal realm, reincarnation of the 8th chaos primordial spirit, disciple of a sage, disciple of the hidden sect, innate great creation. 8th chaos reincarnation. Strange, why didn't it trigger the notification of the connate Providence bearer? It was worth mentioning that Zhao Shuangquan was also Su Qi's personal disciple. He was born with a phenomenon, but such a situation was not unprecedented in the heavenly Tao. Currently, Zhao Shuangquan had yet to show his unparalleled talent. This was difficult. This was his grand disciple. Hanju felt that it was not a coincidence that the 8th chaos was born in the heavenly Tao. "I want to know if the 9th chaos arranged for the 8th chaos to descend into the heavenly Tao to scheme against me. 100 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue?" "Continue. No schemes for the time being." Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that his shout when facing the ancient desolate divine spirit was very effective. He guessed that the 9th chaos was afraid that someone would harm his brother, so it was safer to plant him in the heavenly Tao. However, the fact that he did not scheme for the time being meant that he might scheme in the future. After all, Hanju had deduced that Zhao Shuangquan would threaten him. Hanju thought silently and felt a sense of danger. He looked invincible in the chaos, but it was only in the present. There would always be variables. The change of power in this world was never determined by talent. Opportunities were more important. Just like Huang Zuantian, whose potential was average, he had already walked in front of his personal disciples by relying on a huge opportunity. I should see the hidden sect disciples if there's a chance, Hanju thought silently. He immediately sent a voice transmission to all the personal disciples. They were to gather in the 100-peak immortal river in 100,000 years, including Li Daokong, who was in the life faction. He also asked Li Xianao to prepare for this hidden sect event. This time, Hanju planned to bring the Fiend Celestial Army to the 100-peak immortal river, but he still had to hide their bloodline. He continued cultivating after arranging everything. However, the personal disciples could not remain calm. This was the first gathering of the hidden sect after millions of years. In the myriad worlds projection, personal disciples appeared one after another. Did you hear Grandmaster's arrangements? I heard. This is a good thing. We haven't seen each other for a long time. It's time to gather. Master is still the best. He has such a mystical power that can cover the chaos. The personal disciples chatted excitedly. It was unknown who started it, but they began to talk about their disciples. They were no longer as young as before. They all had their own inheritances. Not to mention disciples, they even had grand disciples. Some had already given birth to descendants and established families. The news quickly reached Han Huang's ears. He was not in the myriad worlds projection, but the personal disciples could send news through the Great Dao Door. Generally speaking, the domain where the Great Dao Door was located was not private. Very few mighty figures spread the news here, but this matter was not shameful, so it reached Han Huang's ears. Han Huang was excited. He wanted to see his father's disciples. He immediately told the evil heavenly emperor about this. Ha ha ha, this is a good thing. Your father is usually in seclusion. If there's no meetup, he might not know even if his disciples go missing. The evil heavenly emperor smiled and won Han Huang's heart. Then, he changed the topic and said meaningfully, Huang, you have to go this time and help me. Cough cough, you know. Han Huang patted his chest and smiled. Your Majesty, don't worry. I'll bring you at least 10 geniuses. They can definitely make the heavenly court stronger. Han Huang found Jiang Juesher after chatting with the evil heavenly emperor. Jiang Juesher hesitated before asking, Master didn't inform me. It's probably not good for me to go, right? Han Huang waved his hand and said, he didn't inform me either, but I want to join in the fun. Senior, let's go together. The reason why father didn't tell you might be because you've never entered the hidden sect, but no matter what, you're my father's disciple. If you go, with your great Tao Sage cultivation, you'll definitely add to the hidden sect meeting. Jiang Juesher felt that it made sense and nodded in agreement with a smile. He was also looking forward to meeting his fellow disciples. Seeing that he agreed, Han Huang did not disturb him anymore and went to inform Han Qinger. Too many cultivators had attained the Great Tao recently. There were more than ever before. They all felt a sense of danger. The chaos looked peaceful, but it was not a good thing for ancient existences like them. Most of their cultivation levels had already reached a bottleneck. Their benefits and power would be weakened when they're juniors. Rose. However, the ultimate god of punishment was too powerful and protected the geniuses greatly. He strictly forbade ancient existences from attacking the juniors. Of course, this was only the feeling of the great Tao sages. To the living beings of the chaos, the current era was very exciting. More and more geniuses rose. The number of chaotic life forms also increased. The reputation of the divine might heavenly sage and the great Tao divine spirit was gradually replaced by juniors. 100,000 years was already a long time for 90% of the living beings in the chaos. Under freedom, every 100,000 years was an era. At the bottom of the chaos, the sky was vast and the murky mist covered most things in the world. Dao Sovereign suddenly stood up and said to loud and not far away, "Old man, we're returning to the heavenly Dao." Zhao Xinyuan and Jiang Yi opened their eyes with anticipation. They had just attained the great Dao not long ago and were in high spirits. Stunned, Loudon asked, "Why do you want to go back? You've already attained the great Dao. Why are you still going back? Aren't you going to create your own lineage?" Dao Sovereign smiled. "Master has ordered the hidden sect disciples to gather. How can we not go?" "Yes. I can go back and show off. Master definitely knows that we have attained the great Dao. He can only show off to the other fellow disciples." Jiang Yi and Zhao Xianyuan replied. The two of them were very excited and looked forward to it. Loudon was silent. Dao Sovereign saw through his thoughts and smiled. "Old man, we won't serve the heavenly Dao, but the heavenly Dao is our foundation, after all. You have also helped us, so we won't forget you. It's just that we can't be loyal to the three pure sacred world. I hope you understand. In the future, the four of us can create a lineage together. As for the connection between the heavenly Dao and the three pure sacred world, the chaos is so big. Why should the two worlds fight? Isn't it better to develop together and advance together?" Dao Sovereign's tone was very intimate in the beginning, but the latter words were heartless. Loudon was furious, but he had to admit it. It was the truth. The Divine Might Heavenly Sage was a transcendent existence that everyone looked up to, including the three pure sages of the three pure sacred world. Loudon looked at the solemn Dao Sovereign and felt bitter. Little did he know that although Hanju didn't care, the myriad world's projection had always maintained the feelings of all the disciples. Regarding the myriad world's projection, it was a secret among the personal disciples of the hidden sect. They never revealed it to outsiders. No matter how good the relationship between Dao Sovereign and the other two was with Lao Dan, they never said anything about it. Zhao Xinyuan walked over and hugged Lao Dan's shoulder. He smiled and said, "Don't think about it. Although you're Laozi's clone, you're already independent. You should think for yourself. In the future, the four of us will definitely create a great Dao system that's on par with the heavenly Dao." Lao Dan's expression softened as he pushed his hand away angrily. At this moment, boom! The ground shook violently and countless cracks appeared on the ground in the distance. Terrifying heat rose, steaming the sky. Jiang Yi cursed. "Again? What's hidden here?" Dao Sovereign frowned. "Let's go. Let's return to the heavenly Dao." The others had no objections and immediately left, disappearing into the mist. Not long after they left, a heavy panting sounded in the world, as if a chaotic beast was napping and could awaken at any time. Outside the 33rd heaven, in the Sage Dao field. In the dark palace, a man in a white Taoist robe was meditating and cultivating. A strong light suddenly lit up in the hall. The door opened and a figure flew in like a ghost. In the blink of an eye, he landed in front of the Taoist-robed man. It was Su Qi. The current Su Qi wore noble black clothes and was filled with the aura of a sage. He said expressionlessly, "Disciple." The Taoist-robed man in front of him was his personal disciple, Zhao Shuangchuan. He did not have many disciples. The only one he cared about was this disciple in front of him. Zhao Shuangchuan opened his eyes and hurriedly stood up to bow respectfully. "Your Grandmaster has ordered that the disciples of the hidden sect will gather in the 100-peak Immortal River. This is an unprecedented event for the hidden sect. I'm planning to bring you there," Su Qi said indifferently. Zhao Shuangchuan's eyes lit up. He asked excitedly, "Can I really? What do I need to prepare?" Su Qi said, "You're too weak. There are still tens of thousands of years. I'll fight for the next sage position for you. You have to attain the Dao. Don't disappoint me." With that, he turned around to leave. Suchi turned into black smoke and dissipated before he finished speaking. He smiled proudly as he thought of showing off. Then, he immediately stood up and went to find his good friends, wanting to ask about the hidden sect disciples. On the other side, Sect Master Tianju had a kind expression and looked at Azure Heaven Mystic in satisfaction. Azure Heaven Mystic was the entire Heavenly Tao's pride. Sect Master, I've decided to stay in the Heavenly Tao in the future. The chaos is indeed exciting, but I've also obtained a huge opportunity. I don't have to take risks anymore. Azure Heaven Mystic smiled confidently. Sect Master Tianju smiled and nodded. It's good that you're back. There are still more than 5 million years. Hurry up and cultivate. You have to win the Eternal Peak. Azure Heaven Mystic smiled proudly. Of course. The two sages looked at each other and laughed. Azure Heaven Mystic asked, something big has happened to the Heavenly Tao recently. I sense that many freedom sages with no providence of the Heavenly Tao on them have. Interested, Azure Heaven Mystic asked with a smile, can I participate? To be honest, I'm also very interested in the hidden sect. Sect Master Tianju shook his head. The Heavenly Tao will definitely be lively during this period of time. You can naturally interact with the hidden sect disciples if you want to. However, you can't enter the 100-peak Immortal River. You're not a hidden sect disciple. No one dared to joke about the Divine Might Heavenly Sage, especially in the circle of Heavenly Tao sages. The sages were only curious about the hidden sect gathering and not nervous. There was no need to go through so much trouble if the Divine Might Heavenly Sage wanted to seize power. One word was enough. There were still countless chaotic forces in the Heavenly Tao. Most of them were here to inspect the Heavenly Tao and wanted to cooperate with it. They could use the hidden sect's power to intimidate the chaos. For a time, the hidden sect was busy, and so were the Heavenly Tao sages. 10,000 years passed. Hanju opened his eyes and stretched. Hanju began to check his emails. His circle of friends in the past 100,000 years was very calm. Calmer than before. He observed the primordial world after reading the emails. Several hours later, he slowly stood up. He teleported into the main Tao field with Qingwana and Xinghongshen. The two women opened their eyes and were stunned when they saw that the scene in front of them had changed. Hanju smiled and said, the hidden sect meeting is about to begin. I brought you here to take a look. You can go out for a walk first. The two women immediately smiled. They naturally wanted to join in the fun. It was time to take a breather after cultivating for so many years. Hanju summoned Li Xianeo after the two women left. Hanju's clone was in the main Tao field. He could contact Li Xianeo at any time and enter and leave. Currently, many personal disciples had returned from the 100-peak Immortal River, such as Chu Shuren, Dao Sovereign, Zhao Shenyuan, and others. Li Xianeo entered and knelt down excitedly. Hanju asked, when can we start? Li Xianeo said, I'm only waiting for your order. Give me a few days of notice. Hanju smiled. Prepare to start. I'll stay in the 100-peak Immortal River during this period of time. Li Xianeo nodded and left. Hanju teleported to the second Tao field and strictly forbade all the Fiend Celestials from revealing their bloodlines. Then, he sent them to the 100-peak Immortal River. With the addition of the 53 chaotic Fiend Celestials, the 100-peak Immortal River was immediately in chaos, especially the Black Hell Chicken and the chaotic Heavenly Dog. They shouted everywhere like overlords patrolling their territory. Hanju began to teach his personal disciples one after another. He talked alone, and everyone chatted for a period of time to nurture their feelings. He couldn't see them all at once. 3 days later, he met all the second-generation disciples. As for the third-generation disciples, There was no need to meet them. Their masters were the link. The hidden sect meeting began under everyone's anticipation. The 100-peak Immortal River was very lively, but the outside world could not spy on them. The second-generation disciples appeared one after another and spoke, raising the atmosphere of the banquet. The outer sect disciples served wine and spirit fruits one after another. This joy lasted for several days, and the disciples of the various generations became familiar with each other. Su Qi's only disciple, Zhao Shuangquan, also attracted the attention of his fellow disciples. His potential was indeed impressive. Because Zhao Xianyuan had the same surname as him, the two of them became close and even agreed to explore the chaos together. On the last day, Hanju appeared and let all the disciples see his true appearance. After a few simple words, Hanju preached the Tao to all the disciples. It lasted for 10 years. The hidden sect meeting this time could be considered to have ended successfully. There was no melodramatic incident of someone causing trouble. All the disciples had to follow the rules in front of Hanju and didn't dare to act recklessly. Hanju paid attention to Zhao Shuangquan but didn't show it. This prodigy reincarnated from the 8th chaos was indeed impressive. Although he had not reached the point of being the best in the hidden sect, he was definitely one of the top few. Su Qi also obtained the envy of the other personal disciples because of this. He didn't show it on his face, but he was delighted. Hanju didn't return immediately after the hidden sect meeting ended. Instead, he transformed into a mortal and traveled the mortal world. Several decades later, outside the 33rd heaven, Tao Sovereign led the way and held the first Heavenly Tao Prodigy meeting in Longhouse Tao Field. He invited the Heavenly Tao Prodigies to gather. It was not to spar but to talk about the situation of the Heavenly Tao and the situation in the chaos. Azure Heaven Mystic also came. He was rather disdainful of Tao Sovereign and the other two. He felt that these three were acting cool, but the other party was indeed powerful. He was truly a great Tao sage. After the Prodigy convention ended, some geniuses suggested sparring. Everyone was a prodigy and was proud and arrogant. No one was convinced by the other. Zhao Shuangquan became famous after a single battle and defeated several geniuses of the same realm. Azure Heaven Mystic did not leave after the meeting ended. Instead, he challenged Tao Sovereign and the other two after the others left. No one knew about this battle. The purple sky was covered in crimson clouds. Below was a continuous forest. The trees here were 10,000 feet tall, like straight mountains. The bark was like iron. Han Huang, Han Qing'er, and Jiang Jueshe hid under a tree. Damn it! I can't go to the hidden sect meeting since I am trapped here. Han Huang cursed indignantly, unable to suppress his anger. Jiang Jueshe's expression was solemn as he said, I keep feeling that something is wrong. The other party didn't kill us and only forced us to stay here. I'm afraid he has a plan. Han Huang cursed. If not for that treasure, how could he be my match? Han Qing'er sighed. Indeed, I didn't expect him to have such a powerful Dharma treasure. It's really impressive. Asur. At this moment, Han Huang suddenly felt something and suddenly looked up. He saw a figure standing on a tree branch tens of thousands of feet away. Azure Heaven Mystic would definitely know him if he was here. Carefree Immortal. Carefree Immortal looked down at them and smiled. Han Huang, the Divine Might Heavenly Sage's son. You were born as freedom, which is unprecedented. Impressive, truly impressive. You will dominate the chaos if there are no accidents. Han Huang glared at him and did not say anything. Carefree Immortal looked at Jiang Jueshe next. You were born with great opportunities. You have stepped onto a supreme road that no one has walked before. Your fate is also an invincible path. The two of you are both invincible, but you walk side by side. One of you will die sooner or later. The person standing above the two of you is also invincible. It's not good for three invincible paths to meet. Han Huang laughed in anger and cursed. Such lies. So you trapped us to deal with my father? You really overestimate yourself. If not for that supreme treasure, you would definitely not be my match. You still want to be enemies with my father with such strength? Han Qing'er nodded and mocked. Jiang Jueshe did not say anything. He waited solemnly and was prepared to attack at any time. Carefree Immortal smiled. You're still young and can't understand my words, but you have to understand that since ancient times, there has only been one strongest person. Pangu, the Tao ancestor, the primordial ancestor god, the ancient desolate divine spirit, and now the divine might heavenly sage. Do you think he can continue being the strongest? Don't you want to sit on this throne? He raised his hands. In an instant, the sky above the forest changed. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Terrifying illusions appeared between the thunder clouds. Han Huang and the other two were nervous, not knowing what this fellow wanted to do. A half-moon red jade flew out from above the carefree immortal's head. It spun at high speed and refracted thousands of lights that illuminated the world. It's here! It's that thing again! Han Huang cursed helplessly. The carefree immortal revealed a strange smile. The half-moon red jade suddenly shattered and the sky suddenly collapsed. The 10,000-foot-tall forest turned into dust. Han Huang and the other two felt their consciousness suffer a heavy blow and everything fell into darkness. Immortal world, in a city of humans. Han Ju, who had retracted his Dharma treasure, was listening to an old Taoist talk about the grand occasion of the hidden sect meeting. The current immortal world was filled with the trend of cultivation. All the major events in the heavenly Tao would spread. Occasionally, one could even hear some news about the chaos. He had already traveled the immortal world for decades and had seen too many interesting things. At this moment, Hanju suddenly felt something and frowned. His bloodline throbbed. Something had happened to his son. Hanju couldn't help but deduce and discovered that Han Huang, Han Qing'er, and Jiang Jueshe were missing. He couldn't deduce it even with his cultivation. How strange! Hanju had no choice but to use the derivation function. I want to know where Han Huang and the other two are now? Unable to derive karma. Hanju frowned. He checked his interpersonal relationships and discovered that the portraits of the three of them were still there. Since they were still there, how could he not have deduced it? Was there something in the chaos that he could not predict? The blank domain has no karma. The system can't derive it, right? Yes. This word made Hanju's heart sink. Ordinary living beings could not enter the blank domain. Could it be that the three of them were attacked? He checked the emails. Your son Han Huang was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure and was severely injured. Your daughter. The three of them were all severely injured. Hanju asked in his mind, I want to know who attacked Han Huang. The other party has an ultimate Tao treasure that cannot be deduced. Hanju showed a frown. His ultimate mortal robe was an ultimate Tao treasure that could defend against a blow from a Tao creator. Could it be that a Tao creator had attacked? No, he could even deduce the ninth chaos. The other party was at least not the ninth chaos, the chaotic consciousness, and the formless transcendent deity. Could it be one of the other two mysterious Tao creators? Hanju kept asking in his mind, wanting to find a flaw. However, he could not derive the other party's karma no matter how he asked. Helpless, he could only wait. If the other party really wanted to kill Han Huang and the other two, they should already be dead. How could they pester him when the other party wielded an ultimate Tao treasure? Hanju was no longer in the mood to listen to the Taoist. He was about to stand up and leave when a 6 or 7-year-old child suddenly sat down in front of him. The child ignored Hanju and picked up the food on the table to eat. Hanju didn't stop him and only stared at him quietly. After a long time, the child was full and his mouth was covered in oil. He looked sloppy. He looked at Hanju and said, "Anomaly. If you're too sharp, disaster will arrive." Hanju smiled and asked, "What anomaly?" The child picked up a jar of wine and started drinking. This jar of wine was larger than his upper body and looked quite strange. Hanju was not in a hurry and waited patiently. "Oh, what trouble is it?" Hanju supported his chin with his right hand and asked with interest. The child's voice was loud, but the surrounding customers did not seem to hear him. No one paid attention to them. The child grinned. "Everything you care about will devour you. The more you like it now, the more hatred you will attract in the future. I've encountered it before. Junior, the next is your most important calamity. You might be able to see the entire chaos, but you might not be able to see through its essence." Hanju retracted his smile and asked, "Tao ancestor?" The child stood up and left. He waved his hand and said, "Tao ancestor? That's only a name given to me by all living beings. When all living beings don't need the Tao ancestor, he naturally won't exist." Hanju watched the child leave. He could sense that this child was only a mortal that did not have any special fate. He was probably possessed by the Tao ancestor's will. The Tao ancestor was indeed hidden in the heavenly Tao. He encountered the Tao ancestor just as something happened to Han Huang and the other two. Too strange. Hanju didn't leave and asked in his mind, "What calamity is the Tao ancestor talking about?" 100 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Hanju's consciousness fell into the illusion. Countless figures floated in the sky as far as the eye could see. They were all hidden sect disciples. A majestic tree connected the world at the end of the horizon of the 100-peak immortal river. Fusong Tree. Hanju's gaze swept over. He saw Han Huang, Han Tuo, Xing Hongshen, Yang Tiandong, Jiang Jueshi, Dao Sovereign, and so on. All his relatives and disciples looked at him with hatred. Hanju turned around and saw a figure standing behind him. It was himself. His future self wore a supreme treasure and looked indifferently at the disciples surrounding him.